My name is Irwin Grossman, and I'm involved with two companies and have two titles. I'm the CEO of Delta Payment Solutions, and Delta Payment Solutions manages a cooperative named Delta Payment Cooperative, and I'm the president of that company. When we started the company, my two other founding partners and I had all been CEOs or COOs of a variety of brick and mortar and online companies, and we were all familiar with merchant processing. As we like to say, we had all been the beneficiaries and the victims of merchant processing. And we've realized that over the last 10 to 15 years, the industry, especially for small and the small end of mid-sized companies, had become more complex, less transparent, and more expensive. So really our vision is solving those three problems for small and mid-sized companies. How can merchant processing become less complex, much more transparent, and certainly less expensive? We're doing that in a way that we think is very differentiable from the rest of the marketplace. One of my other founding partners has spent his whole career developing and growing cooperatives. There are 40,000 cooperatives in the United States, and those are organizations that are owned by the members and run by the members for the benefit of the members. And we believe that Delta Payment Cooperative is the only pure cooperative in the merchant processing industry in the US. And we're using the group buying power of that cooperative to work with large ISOs and back-end processors to develop outstanding rate structures and access to products for our members. We pass those along to our members without adding an obscene amount of margin on top of them, which unfortunately sometimes this industry has become known for. And in addition, in the true business model of a cooperative, we're taking 50%, right now, 50% of the revenue that we earn from doing business with a member, and we're returning it to that member as a rebate. So when you combine our advantageous rate structures with that rebate, we're creating a value proposition that's pretty incredible. We see it as an advantage that the three of us founders don't come from within the industry. So we're not encumbered by the conventional wisdom of the industry. And we're thinking outside the box and bringing knowledge from other industries we've been in. So, we don't have a big telemarketing group that's making phone calls to companies we've never heard of before. We think that's a waste of time and money. Our whole focus is how do we build an extensive network of referral partners. We call them cooperative marketing partners. And they can either be individuals or organizations that can make a direct contact for us to decision makers at companies in our sweet spot that accept credit cards for payment or use credit cards for paying their vendors. And our sweet spot is merchants that do between $1 million and $100 million a year in credit card transactions. It was about 3 years ago, maybe a little more than 3 years ago, We were all socially connected. And one day we were just talking about merchant processing. I'm not sure how it came up. And the whole notion of those three things I had mentioned before, the complexity, the transparency, and the cost came up. And, we've done a lot of things. We're always interested in looking for new things to do. And we thought about how could we benefit small and mid-sized companies, because many of them just didn't have the wherewithal or the negotiating power to get the same kind of benefits that the big companies get. And as I said, one of my fellow founders spent his whole career in working in co-ops, and we thought that was a unique way to differentiate ourselves from the hundreds and probably thousands of ISOs and agents and resellers that populate this market. So far, I would say 80% or so of the clients we have come through our referral network. So the first big client, who remains one of our largest ones, is a software as a service company. And one of my founding partners worked at a previous company with their head of technology. So he knew that they were growing like a weed. They're a private equity funded firm. And that a big part of what they were looking at is how to reduce their credit card processing fees, because 100% of their business is done in e-commerce transactions. And at the time, they were doing about $30 million a year, about a year and a half ago, and now they've more than doubled that. So we followed a procedure that we typically follow with every a potential customer. We had first a Zoom video call with them, and then we had an in-person meeting with them because they're located here in the Boston area. And we quickly analyzed 2 to 3 months of their existing statements from a number of the processors that they were using. And we came back to them, and the first thing we did is we helped them understand exactly what they were getting from those processors. A lot of times, companies in the small and mid-size end of the marketplace may not have someone on their staff to really look at statements in detail every month, or maybe they didn't read their agreement totally when they signed it. So very often we're surprising companies by telling them what they're actually paying versus what they thought they were paying. We started with 2 accounts for them. We now have 6 accounts for them for 3 of their businesses, and we're in the process of applying for 5 more accounts for those existing and 1 new business. So they continue to be a very, very big customer for us. And they've turned into a referral partner. One of the things I didn't mention is that as we grow in the amount of total transaction dollars that our members process, our rebate grows, and our incremental rebate will grow by 5% in 5% increments until it reaches 75%. I think we've been able to better define our sweet spot. When we first started out, we thought it was going to be a pretty even mix of merchants that did card present transactions and card not present, low risk and high risk. And I think we've found that while we're able to provide benefits to all those types of merchants, that we really excel in doing things that are hard. And a lot of agents and ISOs and brokers don't necessarily like to tackle the hard things. So we're working with a lot of merchants that are mainly card not present, that have been categorized as high risk, that may have chargeback rates that are high, reserves they want to get rid of. And so we probably have 60 to 70% of our business that is now card not present and in vertical markets that tend to be harder to work in. And we're excelling at that. In fact, we're working now with one customer that we never thought we would go after before. In total, they'll be way beyond what our sweet spot is, but they're also a cooperative. In a sense, they're a buying organization and they have thousands of members, but each of the members is of a size within our sweet spot. And we're integrating with them and delivering a consolidated set of products and services beyond just merchant processing. And they're going to be very, very significant over the long term for us. My other founding partner, his name is Evan Hackle. In addition to spending a lot of his career in the cooperative world, he started a company that's now the largest training company for the franchise industry. And you can think of franchises as cooperative organizations as well, because the franchisor is there for the benefit of the franchisees. And we're working very hard to gain franchise organizations as well as cooperatives as members of ours. And we're actually finding that a little bit easier because co-ops and franchises understand the co-op model. We're not necessarily looking to be the only one in the industry that does this. I mean, this is an enormous industry. I mean, if we could gain a 1% market share, that would be beyond our wildest dreams. And, that's a huge number, 1% of this overall market. So, there's room for a lot of people. And if there were 3 or 4 or 5 players that had the same business model, and we were able to educate more of the marketplace on the benefits of a co-op, a rising tide raises all ships, right? It's something that we had identified in our strategy when we first started. And I think it's that the virus has exacerbated that. And that's the movement to e-commerce and card not present transactions and digital wallets and eventually cryptocurrency, moving from a card present to both a digital and a card not present world.